next part of my discussion of the Care Act is on the issue of copays. Well, when you have insurance, and see, one of the problems with the Affordable Care Act is it's medical insurance, and medical insurance is a contract, which means that if I pay a company some money to be the payee for the healthcare costs, they're the go-between, they're the middleman. The government pays Blue Shields or the Kaisers or Health Net, whomever it is out there, is the plan administrator. The government sets up what the plans cover, what the plans don't cover, and of course the church publicizes it about abortions and their hot point issues in order to scuttle reform or use the churches and state separation business to basically pervert the law. And both sides have basically perverted this law, whether you have a Republican ideology or a Democratic ideology. The Republicans perverted it during the committees and the amendment process and put what I call the legislative bombs into the law. Both sides could have done it. And the so-called Cornhusker giveaway and all that. But the problem was that somebody set the Medicaid eligibility down at $16,000. I believe it's 150% of the federal poverty line, which is $10,980. So the problem was when I was in the county, their minimum was more like about $21,000, which is realistic in California. I mean, you're dirt poor below about $25,000, and I earn about that level at these IT jobs that just pay paltry salaries. And so the problem with the Affordable Care Act is it was sold as a remedy for the abuses of the medical industrial complex. Blue Shields would do rescissions, look for the gambling and the game playing of medical underwriting, which is deeply sinful and evil. In other words, they would go ahead and they would essentially gamble on people's lives, literally, legally. They had more power than correction officials in death row to decide a person's life. Blue Shield would do rescissions, which they would find a trumped-up charges in the way a medical insurance application was done, and then say, well, you didn't dot the I, cross the T just right. We're going to rip your insurance away, and you're screwed. You have to pay all these costs. And naturally, people have bad health conditions. Essentially, they set them out to die, literally. Or they would squeeze them dry of all the resources and then say, well, you qualify for the Medicaid. Medicaid was offered in 1966 as a plan for health care for the poor. It was perverted in the state legislatures, all of them, all 50 state legislatures, by essentially eliminating any access to health care for any able-bodied Americans. So they said, unless you're disabled, pregnant, or a refugee, interestingly enough, you can't get anything. So people would feign all these disabilities, or in the viewpoint of the conservative mindset, feign all these, so-called disabilities to try to get in. And in reality, they aren't. But that's what was going on. Then the dawn of reform has happened. So, yeah, they offer it now for poor people to get Medicaid. Well, when I was blind, I qualified. I couldn't earn any income. Obviously, I couldn't work being blind. And I had a simple operation to implant lenses so I could see again. Wonderful, it worked. The problem is now I can work. And so I got punished for working. I started working again, and I got punished, and I got kicked out of Medicaid. Yet every refugee, Mexican, and see, this is the conservative race baiting game that they play. They can somehow get it, and I don't. And our county offered what was called a health pack, and they proudly said, well, since you qualify for Covered California, you don't need health pack. Even as much as I disagree with their decision, it's like they're technically right. If I can qualify for Covered California, you should get it, and I did. In other words, I did the appropriate thing. Everything I believe I've done this appropriate thing. The problem is this is much more eviler than the donut hole or any concocted government scheme that I have seen in a generation. And so what's going on is they essentially kicked me out of Medicaid, put me in covered California. The county loves this because they've got eliminated all their bad apples. They're either dumped into Medi-Cal, and they're covered at 100% until I believe 2018, and they're still at 90% coverage. So the county loves it. They've had all their stuff taken away. Blue Shield and Kaiser and all that, they love it. They're getting healthy people to pay for my so-called costs, but in reality, this is still health insurance. If you get any medical costs associated with it, insurance covers only at 80%, and it depends upon the plan. You could have 90% insurance, you could have 80%, you could have 60% conceivably, although there is a standard of coverage in the Affordable Care Act, and I believe it's like at 80%. Well, the problem is that 20% can really bite you in the ass, and that 20% is biting me, and biting me really hard. And the board that got elected for covered California, and that's the California state legislature through Schwarzenegger, set the rules of the game up where that you have 100% deductible up to $17,000, and somewhere in that range. I was $18,890, so I have a $500 deductible. Now that I have loans failing and everything, that money that has failed is going to be an asset. It's going to be put in my income, and it's going to wipe me out for any form of subsidies going forward. I can't qualify because they go by AGI. And so the problem is the Affordable Care Act punishes Americans, rewards the refugees and immigrants, and basically gives a huge sack of cash to Kaiser, Blue Shield, Health Pack, not Health Pack, well, Health Pack in the county, but Health Net, wherever they call themselves. So everybody's getting rewarded except me. I'm being punished badly, punished for working, punished for basically trying to work. And what I should really do is just hide my assets, live off of cash, and then just sit there and milk Medicaid. That's what a lot of people, the board, do. So they're called lazy and shiftless because the system sits there and basically punishes you for working, rewards you if you're lazy, and this is conservative mantra, but the conservatives sit there and they do double talk, and the name of the game is the numbers game. If they put the actual real number up for you to qualify, they know it would cost them a huge amount of money in taxes and everything to really put the honest figure out. They do the same thing with Medicare, offering the so-called doctor costs, and they have to have the doctor fix this, even though Medicare is a single-payer program. And in reality, I'm for single-payer. I'd like to just see all these hucksters put out of business. Government just take over a single government plan, like in Germany, where you have a plan. The insurance company is basically sponsored by the government. They keep care of the costs and all that. And those were the things alleged by Palin as death panels and all that. I don't see any of those existing since Nazism and all that. I mean, there are no death panels in Germany, none in Switzerland. Every other advanced economy uses some form of single payer. It's logical, it's fairer, costs the government way, way less. The problem is it's about money. Suddenly, now that you actually have somebody keeping care of the true costs, you can't treat the healthcare as a shill game. Right now, it's treated as an investment. And the problem is in investments, you expect a rate of return. And so healthcare is spiraling out of control because it's an investment that they're pushing unrealistic rates of return and getting it out of the doctors and then the malpractice fees and all that. And the Democrats have the lawyers and all the malpractice people and ambulance chasers milking it. And you have the Republicans wanting to just give the breaks for all the big little businesses and all that, and doing lip service and using the Bible as an excuse, and basically using the Constitution as an excuse to sit there and just give a poor person like me the shaft, when it would be more fair, more honest, more beneficial to just basically say everyone is covered under a policy. The government writes the rules, which the healthcare reform does a lot of that. But these legislative bombs that were put into it by the committee, either Max Boxes, Olympia Snow, and in the Supreme Court as well, perverting the Constitution so that basically nobody in Texas can qualify. Everybody in the Deep South can't qualify. And in terms of outcomes, health, and all that, they're in the most unhealthy group possible. and yet need it the most. And yet their legislatures, in particular Republican governors, do really big lip service to it. And so the problem is that this is a law that's been very badly perverted to solve some really bad problems. And the problem is that I don't see any relief coming forward by all these hucksters that are in charge. I'd love to see a third party get in charge and just really put all these hucksters out of business. Because the problem is they're all tuned to their masters, and their master is money and their political groups. And you're forced to take a corner in this business. Now, my corner has been, for the most part, in the Democrats. But after this backstabbing that I've received, I don't like what they did. And the problem is I know what the Republicans are going to do. They're going to sit there and they worship almighty dollar. And the Baptists, whomever, all of them, pretend that they believe in Christ, but they sit there and they worship the dollar sign. And they really do. Both sides do. They just worship it from either a lascivious point of view in the Democrats, where they're so-called saying that they're underwriting sin and all that. And then you have the other side saying they're pretending that they take the side of life, but they dump people that are middle age and people that have preventable illnesses, and they sit there and say, well, I'm not my brother's keeper. Hell no. I'm a private business person, and you're a job killer and all that. Well, Affordable Care Act's provided a lot of jobs, and when you consider medical as an investment, and rate of returns that far exceed what it really is. And you can't play that game forever. You can't sit there and make the medical industrial complex a dumping ground for insane profits and figure out somehow that the costs are going to be justifiable to the person at the bottom. That's what's going on here. That was what was going on in the bad old days before reform. Now it's like, well, we fixed that problem, but you really haven't. The problem is now, instead of owing unlimited liability, I'm still owing thousands of dollars. And the business is these Blue Shields and Kaisers and all that, they're just taking away a huge sack of cash away. This wasn't government takeover of healthcare. It was healthcare takeover of government. The county removed all their obligations to take care of me. And the Blue Shields and the Kaisers moved in, and they're making a huge buck out of it. And the law is written to kind of, with copays, to make you think twice about purchasing care that you need. And I understand the game they put in there, but to put this at such a low-income person like me, you're punishing me in effect. And nothing was put in here to fill the gap. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. And this is from our government that's supposed to sit there and say it takes care of its own citizenry. My personal opinion is, even in Canada, I would have gotten better. Taiwan, definitely. So would in Japan. I mean, my viewpoint is, I've been in Holland, and they have a considerably better social safety net. And in this country, it's like, well, they look at it and say, well, I'm not black, I'm not ignorant, I'm not a person sitting there angry and smashing windows and burning things down because I'm cut off from the social safety net, and so I'm just going to act like an animal and rage at the system. Well, there are other ways you can stick the pins at the system. And this is my way of sticking the pins both in the government and the church is silently in bed with the government. We laugh at that in Mexico and a lot of other places where the church just kind of silently sits there in bed with the government and enables them. Well, we got that now with kind of the Christian mentality. And I go to the church and I see a lot of the hypocrisy out there. I see it both from the irreligious groups, and so, I get the whistling and all the cat calls and everything done at me because I dare question the capitalistic system that's supposed to spawn a better standard of living, but seems to be kind of failing for me. And I'm not part of the consumer spiral where I buy things I can't afford to keep up with the Joneses so that I give Bob and Larry a job either in China or India or wherever. I'm cut off from the consumer spiral. And so how many people get cut off from the consumer spiral? And so the attitude is, well, just go away. Shut up. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear it. Well, how many of us, the answer drop dead is kind of some of the clinical thing. Let them eat cake is a famous one. Well, and we've got out of touch leadership. And it's on both sides and both parties are silently out of touch with what's really going on. And you only can do this for so long before basically I don't know what's going to happen. But I do know this, that this country can't have this dislocation of wealth and the people who control that wealth from the people that are basically suffering. And the fact is I'll never vote Republican, but I look at it and I see this as a problem of short-sightedness. I made a lot of mistakes in student loans, and there's people in insane levels of debt for jobs that they're never going to get a decent enough salary on. I'm kind of in that camp. A lot of dumb decisions I made and dumb things I did as far as taking care of myself, and I'm now reaping those consequences. And so the problem is that my problems, a lot of them I did to myself. I can't name a bogeyman. There's a lot of people when they're in trouble, they want to name a bogeyman. No, I did it to myself. And my viewpoint is that I'm kind of disillusioned. I went and I fought so hard for that law. I stood by the president, and in the end, I basically got kind of the shaft. And I feel like this needs to be said, and I'm just going to do a couple of these chats and kind of send my grievances. In other words, sometimes you can't get your grievances met any other way but say put it out on the street corner and see if anybody will listen. And I really wish there was a decent third-party movement in the country. Both sides are lying, and they're bending over backwards and kissing up to their constituency, and the rest of the country is kind of going to the hell in the process. And both sides are responsible. I used to kind of believe it was kind of on the conservative, greedy, money-grubbing, hypocritical kind of Christian outlook, and I realized, no, that's not true. I realized it's both sides doing it. And then you have the issue of the ambulance chasers and the people out there, hamstringing people with regulations and all that, and that's a load of horse shit. And the issue of the banks and all that. And I felt really stabbed in the back with the issue with the financial relief, the TARP. I got screwed on that. The banks made questionable loans and all that, and they got a free pass on all that too. And so much of this stuff, it's all about money. And the problems with what's going on in the country is about money. And the issues of like the people who are disenfranchised, and I am. I'm basically disenfranchised. I don't have access to capital. I don't have a really good idea to monetize my lot in life. I could put a little hat on and bells and maybe be a jester or some form of comedian. Problem is I don't really see anything that could get people to laugh at. And this really isn't something that's really too terribly funny. It's actually kind of pathetic. And the point is that there are promises that have been made, and my viewpoint is I got the short shift. And the thing is a lot of people would look at this and they would say, well, it's your own full fault that you got into this. And the answer is yes. But also the answer is I could have had a better government that has done better for me. And the answer is I'm not going to get it. And the sad answer is the people that are in charge are going to sit on their asses. They're not going to do anything. They're going to keep doing the games that they're going to do. And the political game is to blame the other guy's problem and say, it's your problem when it's really my problem, but I make it your problem, and I go ahead and I don't deal with either side of it. And I sit there and say, well, I'll make it abortion, so we don't get the health care law done. So we get the religious right jumping up and down about it. Or a Hobby Lobby business where they were investing money into companies that have deal with reproductive and issues. They don't even know, and like the churches like I go to, they sign over stock things for Cisco systems and other things that have an agenda that's directly opposition of what they believe in. Yet they sit there and pretend like none of that exists and gaily abandon their monies into that situation. Or they invest in companies like Hewlett-Packard to do business in Israel and continue that business of that war, between the Palestinians and all that lot. So there's a hypocriticalness that comes in this with money. And so nobody can sit there and say their hands are completely clean. And the issue, like, where the president is just everybody's punching bag, and they blame all their problems on the president, and the president only can do so much with what he's got to deal with. And then the issue of where people disrespect the opposition and call them names and obstructionists and all that stuff, and that's not right either. And so the issue is, it's like any particular party, it takes two to tango. And the problem is dysfunctionality is an advantage. And oddly enough, you get the government that you voted. And in this country, we have lots of deeply red little districts, and people are going to keep voting for the same because it's like, hey, boy, that guy is in my district. He's doing a great job. You know, he gets on C-SPAN and he rails about all the problems, and then he votes, you know, the way the money tells him to vote. And the people in the district say, yeah, that guy's doing a great job. But you know, the reason why they stay red and they do the dumbass things that they're doing is because they know the people back home, frankly, are going to keep voting them back. And that's the problem. If they actually had districts where they actually had both sides, like California, the redistricting, I think that would discourage some of these stupid party cheap tricks that are going on. The problem is the money behind it and the business, all that Supreme Court business. I think the Democrats are crying in their beer too. They could sit there and set up all these phony PACs and buy their way through the election as well. And there is a subversion that comes into districting and the money behind it. And if you look at Open Secrets, you see a lot of that going on. And so the problem in the healthcare business is both sides want to blame each other, and neither side really wants to put a law in that actually works. This business of this law was a total failure from the beginning. And it's going to keep being a failure as long as they put the legislative bombs and traps and snares in it. So like dumbass people like me fall into it through no fault of their own. And that's the honest truth of it. They reward the refugees, they get health care. They reward the Mexicans, they get health care. Undocumented workers in Alameda County get health back. Hell of a lot better than what I get. You know, I used to get health back, and they stripped that away from me, disenfranchised. They created no program to meet the gap. They wrote the law so that basically you don't get any care or help. And so, you know what? This is a game. This is like the Moses as far as making bricks without straw. So I turn around and attack the leadership. I got it. But I'm also sitting there saying, you know, jerk, who you were in the subcommittee, whomever it was, the Mac Boxes, or Olympia Snow, who wrote this thing, you guys put this dirty trick in the law. You know who you are. It was a dirty trick that you pulled, and I'm just coming out and I'm saying what it is. It was put in there on purpose. The $16,000, qualification for Medicaid was put in that law. And the game of that law was they say, okay, Mississippi and Alabama qualifies as far as they use them to map out the entire country for what you qualify for. That doesn't matter, and those people are already disenfranchised through the Supreme Court decision. So why even count them? But they do, and they say that's the minimum, qualification level as far as the federal poverty line, and so they use that red line to qualify California and every other place in the country, and that's wrong. And then of course the little Republican sing-song is, well, if you turned it over to the states, they could set their own poverty line, but there would be no money there. So it would be even worse. So that's their game. So the issue of this is it's all games. And so you turn it to outside, states with insurance, so-called give them a better deal through the competition. Then you don't have the protections. And that becomes a real huge mess. And that's their little sing-song. So that's their so-called alternative. They know that they can't really eliminate the popular things on this. And if they do, they know their asses are going to be voted out. This is going to not go over. So the games that they're playing, this is all posturing. In reality, they need to really fix the law and fix the Medicaid eligibility, make it more fair. They should allow the states to set that, but they won't. They won't sit there and enact any decent law that helps anybody. But they'll sit there and they'll vote all sorts of things for their wealthy cronies. or in the case of the Democrats, the games that they're playing for their little agenda. They're going to kiss up to the Mexicans and the refugees. And an American like me, it's like, I don't even want to use a profanity, but it's pretty much, off. And both sides are, off because, people like me, unless I'm prepared to vote for a Republican Party, and I'd probably be dead before I would even choose that as an option. I mean, better dead than red, as far as I'm concerned. I feel like better dead than blue right now, but I don't see like any point of view out there is going to really do anything for me. And I just see these guys as just dressed up little peacocks being trotted out in front of the cameras, and they're just going to sit there and ventriloquist what they want to hear. And I summed it up with Mitt Romney. It's kind of like, secret. It's strong enough for a man but made for a woman. Well, it's conservative enough to get you through the primaries, but moderate enough to get you elected. Well, I'm one of the screwed poor. I won't vote for him, and I know that the blacks aren't going to vote for him, or the Mexicans aren't going to vote for him. Why are we going to vote for somebody who's going to screw us to the wall further? Quite the reverse. We're going to vote somebody who's going to hopefully give us a better shot. And I'm not really a Hillary fan either. I've met her people, They were nasty, mean, and rude during the presidents. And I helped the president during the first time around. I was too blind to be able to do anything during the second time around. I mean, I really couldn't do anything. And the Affordable Care Act through the Medicaid waiver, I got my eyesight back. See, the Affordable Care Act, not all of it is bad. The problem is it got my eyesight back, and then I got punished for working. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not all bad, but it's not been good lately for me, and it's getting worse. And my viewpoint is, this is my second series of venting off about how I feel fucked by the American government, and how I really feel screwed by the hypocrites in Washington and their doublespeak and their games, both parties system, and how, in a sense, if I had another choice, I probably wouldn't choose anybody right now. I mean, my viewpoint is I'm not happy with anybody who's in charge right now. I respect the president, and I feel like he's a very good man, and he's gotten really a shitty deal. And I respect him, and I believe he's a Christian. In some ways, I'm a Christian, too. I'm a Christian Democrat. Excuse me for the German laugh. But I also, in a lot of ways, get kicked in the ass by the churches, because a lot of them think that they're good little old conservatives and that we're all, good little Republican Christians. And it's like, sorry, you know what? There are some of us out there who are blue, and some of us that, do make our homes in the churches. And I don't, approve of a lot of the amoral and irreligious things that are pontificated by the Democratic Party. But you know what? They are the best hope for me in my situation, even in spite of the fact they put this piece of crap together and advertise this as the solution to everybody's woes. And the real solution is single-payer health care. And my hope is that once this thing runs its full course, in a sense, it's going to just crash and burn. And when it's all done, single-payer is probably what's going to clean the mess up finally. That's my feeling about it. I don't see the Affordable Care Act as lasting over time. It keeps going at this rate, it's just going to fail. I feel like it. But in my case, I'm not trying to root for its failure. I'm not really entirely rooting for its success. It needs to be fixed, and my viewpoint is that this fails, then I feel like it's single payer, and that's just the end of it.